The first time anyone heard the call sign Ghost Mother, it came through a broken radio on a dying planet called Nexar 7. The year was 2847, and humanity had spread across 300 worlds, but they had also found enemies. The Vectari were insect-like creatures standing 12 feet tall, with armor made of their own hardened skin and weapons that could melt through starship hulls. They did not negotiate. They did not take prisoners. They simply consumed world after world, stripping them of resources and moving on. Sergeant Marcus Cole was 23 years old when his entire battalion died around him. He remembered the screams, the sound of plasma fire, the smell of burning flesh mixed with alien chemicals. His leg was broken. His rifle was empty. He had crawled into a crater created by an artillery strike and waited to die. The Vectari were methodical. They would find him. They always found everyone. The radio on his chest crackled with static. Then a voice came through, calm and steady like someone reading a bedtime story to a child. "Soldier, I see you in the crater 30 meters north of the burning transport. Do not move. Do not make a sound. Help is coming." Marcus had not called for help. His radio was set to receive only. He did not know how anyone could see him when the smoke was so thick that he could barely see his own hands. But something in that voice made him obey. He pressed himself deeper into the dirt and waited. The Vectari patrol passed within 10 feet of his position. 5 of them, their clicking mandibles making that horrible sound that haunted every human soldier's nightmares. They should have detected his heat signature. They should have smelled his blood. But they walked past as if he was not there. "Stay down for 3 more minutes," the voice said. "A rescue shuttle will arrive at coordinates 77 Alpha. You will need to move fast when I tell you. Your leg is broken, but you will make it. I believe in you, Marcus." She knew his name. She knew his position. She knew about his leg. Marcus did not question it. When the voice told him to move, he moved. He crawled and dragged himself through mud and blood and wreckage. The shuttle appeared exactly where she said it would be. The pilot looked confused, said he had received anonymous coordinates and instructions to extract 1 survivor. Marcus was the only living human left on Nexar 7. That was the first recorded incident involving Ghost Mother, though military intelligence later discovered she had been active for at least 2 years before that. Nobody knew who she was. Nobody knew where she operated from. Nobody knew how she had access to military frequencies, satellite feeds, enemy positions, and information that even the highest-ranking generals did not possess. What everyone knew was simple. When Ghost Mother spoke, soldiers lived. The Human Alliance military tried to find her, of course. They traced signals that bounced through 17 different relay stations across 12 star systems before disappearing into nothing. They analyzed her voice and found it had been digitally altered, not to hide gender, but to hide everything else. Age, accent, emotional patterns, even breathing rhythms were scrubbed clean. The voice that reached dying soldiers was warm and human, but the technology behind it was beyond anything the Alliance had developed. Some generals wanted her arrested for unauthorized access to military systems. Others wanted to recruit her. A few whispered that she might not be human at all. That perhaps she was some kind of artificial intelligence that had developed a conscience. The debates continued in secure rooms while soldiers continued to live because of her interventions. Private Elena Vasquez was 19 years old when she first heard Ghost Mother. Her transport had been shot down over Meridian 4, a jungle world where the Vectari had established a breeding ground. She was the only survivor of the crash, surrounded by dense vegetation that hid things that wanted to eat her. Her training said to stay with the wreckage, activate her beacon, and wait for rescue. But her beacon was destroyed, and staying with the wreckage meant waiting for Vectari patrols to find her. She started walking in a random direction, hoping to find something, anything, that might help her survive. After 3 hours of pushing through alien plants that seemed to grab at her with every step, her radio activated. "Elena, stop walking. You are heading toward a Vectari nest. Turn around and walk exactly 200 steps north. You will find a river. Follow it downstream for approximately 2 kilometers. There is an old mining facility there with communication equipment." Elena stopped. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might explode. "Who is this? How do you know my name? You can call me Ghost Mother. Everyone does. I know you are scared. I know you think you are going to die on this planet, but I need you to trust me. I have been watching over soldiers like you for a long time. I have never lost someone who followed my instructions. Please, Elena, turn north. Elena turned north. She found the river exactly where Ghost Mother said it would be. She followed it downstream, and when Victari patrols came close, Ghost Mother warned her. When the jungle tried to kill her with poisonous plants or hidden predators, Ghost Mother told her which paths to avoid. It took her 18 hours to reach the mining facility, but she reached it alive. The communication equipment worked. Elena sent a distress signal and was rescued 2 days later. When the rescue team asked how she had survived, she told them about Ghost Mother. The soldiers nodded knowingly. They had heard the stories. Some of them had their own experiences to share. Word spread through the ranks like wildfire. Ghost Mother became a legend, a guardian angel that watched over humanity's soldiers from somewhere in the vast darkness of space. Some people prayed to her. Some people thought she was a myth, a collective delusion created by traumatized soldiers who needed to believe someone was looking out for them. But the evidence kept piling up. Hundreds of soldiers, then thousands, reported her interventions. Each story was different, but they all shared common elements: the calm voice, the impossible knowledge, the perfect guidance that led to survival against impossible odds. The Victari noticed too. They began to study the patterns, trying to understand how human soldiers kept escaping situations where escape should have been impossible. Their analysts detected the encrypted communications, the sophisticated interference with their sensor systems, the small but crucial advantages that humans seemed to receive at critical moments. They did not know what they were fighting, but they knew they were fighting something. Captain David Chen commanded a forward operating base on Arcturus 9 when the Victari launched their largest offensive of the war. 12,000 alien warriors against his 300 soldiers, with reinforcements at least 48 hours away. Standard military doctrine said to retreat, to save what could be saved and abandon the rest. But Arcturus 9 had a civilian population of 50,000 humans in the settlement behind his base. There was no time to evacuate them. If his base fell, they would all die. Chen was preparing to make his last stand when his personal communication device activated. The channel it used was encrypted, accessible only to him, and supposedly impossible to hack from outside the Alliance military network. Captain Chen, this is Ghost Mother. I know what you are facing. I know what you are planning. I want to help you save those people. Chen had heard the stories. He had dismissed them as exaggerations, as the kind of myths that soldiers created to cope with the horrors of war. But now that voice was speaking directly to him, and something about it made him believe. How can you help? He asked. We are outnumbered 40-1. Even with perfect intelligence, we cannot win this fight. You do not need to win, Ghost Mother said. You need to survive long enough for reinforcements to arrive. I can help you do that. The Victari commander is named Krixtal. He is aggressive but predictable. He will attack your eastern flank first, because that is where your defenses appear weakest. If you relocate your heavy weapons to these coordinates, you will create a kill zone that will break his first wave. She sent him coordinates. She sent him timing. She sent him a complete analysis of Victari tactics that would have taken military intelligence weeks to compile, and she kept sending information throughout the battle, warning him about flanking maneuvers before they happened, identifying weak points in enemy formations, guiding his soldiers through a 40-hour nightmare of continuous combat. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found Chen's base still standing. He had lost 112 soldiers, but 50,000 civilians were alive because of it. The battle became known as the Miracle of Arcturus 9, and it cemented Ghost Mother's legend, not just among common soldiers, but among the Alliance High Command. Admiral Sarah Keating was 61 years old and had commanded fleets through 3 major wars. She did not believe in miracles or guardian angels. She believed in intelligence, preparation, and superior firepower. But the reports about Ghost Mother could not be ignored. Someone, somewhere, had access to information that the Alliance did not possess, and that someone was using it to help humanity survive. Keating assigned her best people to investigate. They worked for months, following digital trails that went nowhere, interviewing soldiers who could only describe a voice, analyzing patterns that seemed random, but somehow always resulted in human survival. The investigation reached no conclusions but raised many questions. How did Ghost Mother know things before they happened? How did she access supposedly secure systems across multiple star systems simultaneously? How did she manage to be everywhere at once, helping soldiers on dozens of different worlds during the same time period? No single person could do what she did, but no organization had been identified either. Ghost Mother seemed to be exactly what her name suggested, a phantom, a presence without form or explanation. The war continued. The Vectari pushed deeper into human territory, but their advance was slower than their analysts had predicted. They kept encountering resistance in places where resistance should have been impossible. They kept losing soldiers to ambushes that somehow anticipated their every move. Their commanders began to whisper about human sorcery, about impossible magic that protected their enemies from harm. Lieutenant James Wright was piloting a damaged fighter through an asteroid field when his engines failed completely. His ship began drifting toward a massive rock that would crush him in approximately 4 minutes. His ejection system was offline. His communication system was barely functional. He was 26 years old, and he was absolutely certain he was going to die. Then Ghost Mother spoke to him. "James, listen carefully. Your main engines are gone, but your maneuvering thrusters still have fuel. If you fire them in a specific sequence, you can alter your trajectory enough to pass between asteroid designations 7 and 9. The gap is narrow, but your ship will fit. After that, there is a small moon with a breathable atmosphere 300 kilometers away. You can glide there if you maintain the correct angle." James did not ask questions. He did not have time. He fired his thrusters exactly as she instructed. Watching the massive asteroid pass close enough that he could see individual craters on its surface, his ship squeezed through the gap with meters to spare. He adjusted his angle and began the long glide toward salvation. "Ghost Mother," he said, his voice shaking. "How do you do this? How do you know everything?" There was a pause, longer than usual. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "I watch. I listen. I remember what it felt like to be afraid and alone, and I decided that no one should have to face that darkness without someone watching over them. But who are you? Why do you care about us?" "I am someone who loves humanity," she said simply. "I am someone who believes you are worth saving. That is all you need to know, James. Now focus on your landing. The moon's surface is rough, but there is a flat area near the coordinates I am sending you. Good luck." James landed safely. He was rescued 3 days later by a passing patrol. He joined the thousands of other soldiers who owed their lives to a voice in the darkness, a phantom protector who asked for nothing in return. The war entered its 5th year. Humanity was surviving, but just barely. The Vectari controlled 60% of human space, and their advantage in numbers and resources meant that simple survival was not enough. Something had to change, or humanity would eventually be worn down to nothing. That was when Ghost Mother did something she had never done before. She contacted Admiral Keating directly. The Admiral was alone in her quarters when her personal terminal activated without her command. A text message appeared on the screen, followed by a voice that had become famous across every human world. "Admiral Keating, I apologize for the intrusion. I know you have been searching for me. I know you have many questions. I cannot answer most of them, but I can offer you something valuable. I have discovered information about the Vectari that could change the course of this war. I am willing to share it with you, but only if you agree to certain conditions." Keating stared at her screen for a long moment. Then she spoke aloud, assuming Ghost Mother could hear her. "What conditions? First, you will not attempt to trace this communication, or any future communications from me. Second, you will not share the information I provide with your intelligence services in a way that could compromise my sources. Third, you will use what I tell you to save lives, not just to achieve military victory. I have watched humanity fight this war, Admiral. I have seen courage and sacrifice that inspires me, but I have also seen cruelty and waste that breaks my heart. If I help you win, I want you to win in a way that humanity can be proud of." Keating considered the conditions. They were unusual but not unreasonable. "And if I agree, then I will tell you about the Vectari homeworld. I will tell you about their weaknesses, their internal conflicts, their fears. I will give you the knowledge you need to end this war in months instead of decades. The choice is yours, Admiral. I will wait for your answer." The Admiral made her decision. She agreed to Ghost Mother's conditions, and over the next several hours, she received more intelligence about the Vectari than humanity had gathered in 5 years of war. She learned that the Vectari were not united but divided into competing hive minds that cooperated only against external threats. She learned that their expansion was driven not by aggression but by desperation, that their original homeworld was dying and they needed new territory to survive. She learned about their communication networks, their supply lines, their political structures, and most importantly, their fears. The Vectari feared isolation. They feared being cut off from their hive minds. They feared the silence that came when their mental connections were severed. And Ghost Mother knew exactly how to exploit that fear. The information changed everything. Within 6 months, human forces had developed weapons that disrupted Vectari mental communication, causing panic and confusion among their ranks. Within a year, the war had shifted from desperate defense to strategic offense. Within 2 years, the Vectari were suing for peace, agreeing to return to their original territory and establish permanent borders with human space. The war was over, but Ghost Mother did not disappear. If anything, her presence became more visible. She began helping with disaster relief, warning settlements about incoming natural catastrophes, guiding rescue teams through dangerous environments. She helped prevent famines by predicting crop failures. She helped stop plagues by identifying outbreaks before they spread. She became not just humanity's guardian in war, but their protector in peace. And still, no one knew who she was. The mystery consumed journalists, researchers, and conspiracy theorists alike. Theories multiplied. Some said she was a rogue AI that had achieved consciousness. Some said she was a group of hackers working together under a shared identity. Some said she was a time traveler from the future, sent back to save humanity from extinction. A few even suggested she was an alien, a benevolent being from a species that had chosen to help humanity without revealing itself. None of the theories were proven. None were definitively disproven either. Ghost Mother remained what she had always been, a voice in the darkness, a presence without form, a guardian without a face. But somewhere, in a place that no one had found and no one ever would, a woman sat alone in a room filled with screens showing feeds from across human space. She was old now, older than she looked, her body kept alive by technology that most people would not recognize. She watched soldiers and civilians, politicians and criminals, heroes and villains. She watched humanity in all its complexity and contradiction, and she loved them. Her name was not important. Her history was not important. What mattered was the work, the endless vigilance, the constant effort to tip the scales toward survival and hope. She had been doing this for so long that she barely remembered any other kind of life. But she remembered why she started. She remembered the promise she made. She remembered the first soldier she saved, the first time she guided someone through darkness to light. She remembered his face when he reached safety, the tears streaming down his cheeks, the whispered thanks to a presence he could not see or understand. In that moment, she knew she had found her purpose. In that moment, she became Ghost Mother, and she would never stop watching over her children. The peace lasted 12 years. Humanity rebuilt its shattered worlds, mourned its dead, and slowly began to hope again. Children grew up hearing stories about the Vectari War, about heroes who fought impossible battles and a mysterious guardian who watched over them all. Ghost Mother became something like a folk legend, a comforting presence that parents invoked when their children were afraid. Ghost Mother is watching, they would say. You are never alone, but peace never lasts forever. In the 13th year after the Vectari peace treaty, a new threat emerged from beyond known space. The first sign was silence. 3 colony worlds near the galactic rim stopped sending communications within a week of each other. Investigation teams were dispatched, but they disappeared too. When a military battle group finally arrived at the nearest colony, Horizon's Edge, they found nothing. Not ruins, not bodies, not wreckage, just empty buildings on an empty world, as if every human being had simply ceased to exist. The disappearances continued. Colony after colony went dark, always on the outer edges of human space, always without warning or explanation. Military analysts called it the quiet spread. Soldiers called it something else. The vanishing. Something was taking human worlds, and no one could figure out what. Commander Rachel Torres was in charge of defending a mining station near the frontier when the vanishing reached her sector. The station held 3,000 workers and their families, along with enough raw materials to supply a dozen shipyards. If it fell, it would be a significant blow to humanity's defensive capabilities. Torres had prepared for Vectari tactics. She had prepared for pirates. She had even prepared for natural disasters. But nothing in her training had prepared her for what appeared on the edge of her sensor range at 0347 hours on a Tuesday morning. The ships were unlike anything human or Vectari. They moved without visible propulsion, massive geometric shapes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They made no attempt to communicate. They simply approached, steady and inevitable, like a tide coming in. Torres opened every communication channel she had. She broadcast greetings, warnings, pleas for negotiation. The ships did not respond. They kept coming, and as they got closer, Torres felt something she had never experienced before. A presence pushing at the edges of her mind, something vast and cold and utterly alien. Her crew started screaming. Some collapsed. Others began walking toward the airlocks with blank expressions, as if pulled by invisible strings. The aliens were not attacking their bodies. They were attacking their minds. Torres managed to seal herself in the command center, but she could feel the pressure building inside her skull. Images flooded her consciousness. Endless darkness, ancient hunger, something that had existed before stars were born and would exist long after they died. These creatures did not hate humanity. They did not even particularly notice humanity. Humans were simply food, raw material to be consumed by something that had been feeding on intelligent life since the universe was young. Commander Torres. The voice cut through the chaos like a beam of light through fog. Torres clung to it, using it as an anchor against the tide pulling at her sanity. Ghost Mother? Her voice came out as a whisper. How can you help against this? I cannot stop them directly. They are beyond my ability to affect. But I can help you survive. I can help you warn the rest of humanity. And most importantly, I can tell you what they are. Torres listened. Ghost Mother spoke quickly but clearly, explaining what her extensive monitoring had uncovered about these new invaders. They were called the Observers by ancient species that had encountered them and survived. They were not conquerors in any traditional sense. They were harvesters, beings that fed on consciousness itself, absorbing minds and memories to fuel their incomprehensible existence. They had destroyed civilizations across the galaxy for millions of years, always moving, always feeding, never stopping. They have one weakness, Ghost Mother said. They cannot process certain frequencies of thought. Strong emotional bonds, memories tied to love and connection rather than individual identity, these things are poison to them. The colonists who disappeared were taken because they were isolated, because their psychological profiles showed them as individualistic and emotionally detached. They were easy prey. How does that help me? Torres demanded. Her head was splitting. She could feel herself losing coherence, her thoughts scattering like leaves in a storm. Focus on something you love. Someone you love. Hold on to that connection with everything you have. They cannot consume you if you are anchored to something beyond yourself. And send everything I have told you to the Alliance fleet. Humanity needs to know what is coming. Humanity needs to prepare. Torres thought of her daughter. Maria was 11 years old, living with Torres's sister on a core world, safe from the dangers of frontier duty. Torres had not seen her in person for 2 years, but she remembered everything. The sound of her laugh, the way she wrinkled her nose when she was thinking hard, the feel of her small hand holding Torres's finger when she was a baby. The pressure receded slightly. Torres forced herself to move, to access the communication systems, to transmit everything Ghost Mother had told her. The data streamed out into space, bouncing through relay stations toward the heart of human civilization. Good, Ghost Mother said. Now you need to evacuate. There is an old emergency shuttle in Docking Bay 7. It was decommissioned last year but never actually removed. I have already activated its systems remotely. It can hold 30 people. Take as many of your crew as you can save, and go. Torres wanted to ask how Ghost Mother knew about a shuttle that was not supposed to exist. She wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but there was no time. She forced open the command center door and began gathering survivors, using the maintenance tunnels to avoid the main corridors where most of the crew had already been taken. She found 17 people still fighting for their sanity. She herded them toward Docking Bay 7, Ghost Mother's voice guiding her past dangers, warning her when the alien presence grew stronger, helping her navigate a station that had become a nightmare. They reached the shuttle. They launched. Behind them, the mining station went dark, joining the list of places humanity had lost to the vanishing. But Torres had survived. Her crew had survived. And the information they carried would save millions. The Alliance military studied Ghost Mother's intelligence with desperate intensity. Scientists analyzed the data about observer feeding patterns and psychological vulnerabilities. Military strategists developed new protocols for frontier settlements, emphasizing community bonds and collective identity over individual isolation. Psychologists created training programs to help soldiers resist mental assault by anchoring themselves to emotional connections. It was not enough to stop the observers entirely. Nothing could do that. But it was enough to slow them down, to make humanity a less attractive target, to create pockets of resistance that cost the ancient predators more than they were worth. The vanishing continued, but it became manageable, predictable, something that could be fought rather than simply suffered. Ghost Mother became more active than ever during this period. She guided evacuations, warned settlements of approaching threats, coordinated defense efforts across hundreds of light years. Her voice became so familiar that some people claimed they could recognize her emotional state, could tell when she was worried or hopeful or sad. She was no longer just a guardian. She had become something like a member of every community she protected, an absent but essential presence in the fabric of human civilization. The observers noticed her too. They did not understand her at first. She was not like their usual prey. Her consciousness did not exist in a single location that could be targeted. She was everywhere and nowhere, a distributed presence that seemed to operate across multiple systems simultaneously. When they tried to feed on her, they found nothing to consume, just signals and echoes and an iron will that refused to surrender. But they were patient. They had learned patience over millions of years. And they began to search for her, these ancient beings that had never before had reason to hunt a single individual. Ghost Mother had made herself a threat, and threats had to be eliminated. The hunt changed her. She had always been careful, but now she became invisible. She rerouted her communications through even more complex networks, established backup systems and emergency protocols, prepared for the possibility that she might be found and destroyed. But she never stopped working. She never stopped watching over her children. Sergeant Major Helen Park was 47 years old when the observers found her unit. They were stationed on a research moon, studying ancient ruins that might have belonged to a species the observers had consumed long ago. When the geometric ships appeared on the horizon, Park knew they had no chance of escape. The moon had no defenses, no evacuation capacity, just 50 scientists and 20 soldiers waiting to die. Ghost Mother's voice came through her personal communicator. "Helen, I know this looks impossible. I need you to trust me. The ruins your team has been studying contain technology that the observers fear. Their previous victims learned how to hurt them before they were destroyed. That knowledge is buried in those ruins, and I have spent months analyzing it remotely. I can guide you to it." Park had heard about Ghost Mother's interventions during the observer conflict. She had read the reports, studied the survival statistics. People who listened to Ghost Mother lived. People who ignored her died. The choice was simple. "Tell me what to do," she said. Ghost Mother guided her through corridors that had not been fully explored, past chambers filled with alien technology that hummed with strange energy. The observers were landing now, their presence pressing against the minds of everyone on the moon. Scientists began to collapse. Soldiers fought to maintain their discipline. Park kept moving, following a voice that never wavered. The chamber she eventually reached was deep underground, hidden behind doors that responded to Ghost Mother's transmitted commands. Inside was a device that looked like nothing Park had ever seen, a crystalline structure that pulsed with inner light, surrounded by control panels covered in alien symbols. "This is a disruption field generator," Ghost Mother explained. "It creates a frequency that interferes with observer feeding processes. The species that built it used similar devices to survive for thousands of years before they were finally overwhelmed. This one is damaged but still functional. If you activate it, the observers will be forced to retreat from this moon. They cannot function within its range. How do I activate it? Ghost Mother walked her through the process, step by step. The symbols meant nothing to Park, but she followed instructions precisely, touching panels in the correct sequence, adjusting crystal alignments according to Ghost Mother's direction. The device began to glow brighter, emitting a tone that Park felt more than heard. Outside, the observers stopped. Their ships hung motionless in the moon's thin atmosphere. Then, slowly, they began to retreat, pulling back from the surface, withdrawing from the system entirely. Park's team had survived. And more than that, they had captured technology that could be replicated, mass-produced, used to create safe zones throughout human space. It was not a weapon that could destroy the observers, but it was something better, a shield that could protect humanity from their hunger. The discovery transformed the conflict. Within 5 years, disruption field generators protected every major human world. The observers still prowled the edges of human space, still took isolated colonies and unprotected ships, but they could no longer threaten humanity's core. The vanishing became a danger rather than an existential threat, something to be guarded against rather than feared as inevitable doom. Ghost Mother was credited with the breakthrough, though she refused any official recognition. When the Alliance Council voted to honor her with their highest civilian award, she declined through a brief text message that simply said, "The honor belongs to those who fought. I only watched." But she continued watching. She expanded her operations, establishing connections with species that had survived observer predation, building a network of intelligence and mutual defense that spanned multiple civilizations. Humanity was no longer alone in facing ancient threats. They had allies now, and Ghost Mother had helped create those alliances through years of patient diplomacy, conducted entirely through encrypted communications. The observers were not the only threat that emerged during this period. The universe seemed determined to test humanity at every opportunity. Rogue artificial intelligences attempted to infiltrate human networks. Dimensional rifts opened near populated worlds, releasing entities that existed outside normal physics. A fundamentalist human faction tried to spark a civil war that would have weakened humanity's defenses against external threats. Ghost Mother was involved in resolving all of these crises. Sometimes she worked with official authorities, sharing information that helped them make better decisions. Sometimes she worked alone, intervening directly when bureaucratic processes moved too slowly to prevent disaster. She was criticized for this by some, accused of playing God, of making decisions that should be left to elected officials and military commanders. But the people she saved rarely complained, and her critics had difficulty arguing with her results. Dr. Samuel Reyes was a xenobiologist studying a newly discovered alien species when he first encountered Ghost Mother personally. The species, called the Harmonic Collective, communicated through complex song patterns that human technology struggled to interpret. Negotiations between humanity and the collective had stalled because neither side could understand what the other was trying to say. Reyes received a message one night that offered a breakthrough. Ghost Mother had spent months analyzing collective communications and had developed a partial translation matrix. She shared it with Reyes, along with extensive notes about collective psychology and cultural values. With this information, Reyes was able to restart negotiations and eventually establish a peaceful relationship that benefited both species. "Why help with this?" Reyes asked during one of their text-based conversations. The collective was not threatening us. This was not a crisis. Every positive connection between species makes the universe a little safer. Ghost Mother replied, "Every alliance strengthens the web that protects intelligent life from the things that would destroy it. I do not only help during emergencies, Dr. Reyes. I try to help always, in whatever way I can. But why? What do you get out of this?" There was a long pause before her response came. "I get to see people live. I get to see civilizations grow and develop and create beauty. I get to know that the universe has more light in it because of something I did. That is enough. That has always been enough." Reyes never learned her identity. Like everyone else, he knew her only as a voice, a presence, a force for good that operated beyond the boundaries of normal human institutions. But he came to understand something about her through their conversations. She was genuinely motivated by love. Not romantic love, not familial love, but something broader and deeper. She loved humanity the way a gardener loves their garden, carefully tending each plant while nurturing the whole. The Alliance Council eventually stopped trying to find her. The intelligence services shifted their resources to other priorities. Ghost Mother had proven herself so thoroughly that hunting her seemed not only pointless but ungrateful. She was accepted as a permanent fixture of human civilization, mysterious but essential, unknown but trusted. 20 years after the Observer conflict began, humanity had established itself as a major power in the galactic community. They had allies among a dozen species, technology that rivaled the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, and a reputation for resilience that commanded respect. They had also changed in less visible ways, becoming more connected, more communal, more aware of their place in a vast and often dangerous universe. Ghost Mother had changed too, though few people noticed. Her interventions became more sophisticated, more subtle, focused less on immediate crises, and more on long-term trends. She worked to prevent conflicts before they started, to address problems while they were still small, to guide humanity toward better futures without controlling their choices. She also began to prepare for something that she had been dreading for a long time. Her body was failing despite all the technology keeping it alive. The countless modifications and life extensions that had allowed her to continue her work were reaching their limits. She was dying, slowly but inevitably, and she needed to ensure that her work would continue after she was gone. The plan took years to develop. Ghost Mother created protocols and procedures that could be followed by others, training programs that could prepare new guardians to take her place. She established foundations and organizations that would continue her diplomatic work. She archived everything she had learned over decades of watching and protecting humanity, creating a knowledge base that future guardians could use. But she knew that none of this would be enough. What made her effective was not her systems or her knowledge or her technology. It was her understanding, her intuition, her ability to see what people needed and provide it at exactly the right moment. That could not be taught. It could only be developed through experience. So she began to search for successors. Not one person, but many, each with different skills and perspectives, each capable of watching over a different aspect of human civilization. She found them in unexpected places, a nurse who showed unusual empathy for patients, a teacher who could reach even the most troubled students, a soldier who always seemed to know what her comrades needed, a scientist who understood not just data, but the humans behind it. She reached out to each of them carefully, testing their character before revealing anything important. Those who passed her tests received training, resources, and gradually more responsibility. Those who failed were gently redirected toward other paths where they could do good without carrying the burden she had carried for so long. The process was slow and uncertain. Ghost Mother did not know if her successors would be able to match her effectiveness, did not know if the network she was building would hold together after she was gone, but she did know that trying was better than leaving humanity unprotected. She had to trust that the seeds she planted would grow into something strong, and through it all, she kept watching. She kept protecting. She kept being the voice in the darkness that told frightened people they were not alone. Captain Marcus Chen was the grandson of David Chen, the officer who had defended Arcturus 9 during the Victari War. When he was assigned to command a deep space exploration vessel, he received a message from Ghost Mother congratulating him on his new post. She mentioned his grandfather, mentioned the battle that had made his family name famous, mentioned her pride in seeing the Chen family continue to serve humanity. "I watched over your grandfather," she said. "I watched over your mother during her service. Now I will watch over you. That is what family does." Chen did not understand what she meant by family. Ghost Mother was not related to him, had never met him, existed only as a voice and a legend. But something in her words touched him deeply, made him feel connected to something larger than himself, something that spanned generations and reached across the stars. "Thank you," he replied, "for everything you have done, for everything you continue to do. Thank you for being worth protecting," she answered. "That is all the thanks I need." The exploration mission took Chen to the far reaches of known space, to places where no human had gone before. He encountered wonders and dangers in equal measure. But through it all, Ghost Mother's presence remained. She warned him about hidden threats, helped him navigate difficult situations, celebrated his successes with messages of quiet pride. And when the mission ended, when Chen returned home as a hero who had pushed humanity's boundaries further than ever before, Ghost Mother was there to welcome him back. "You have done well," she said. "Your grandfather would be proud. Your species would be proud." I am proud. Chen smiled at the message, feeling the warmth that countless others had felt when Ghost Mother spoke to them. He did not know who she was. He did not know how she did what she did, but he knew she was real. And he knew she cared. And somehow that was enough. It had always been enough. 43 years had passed since the first recorded incident involving Ghost Mother. The woman who had started it all was 117 years old. Her body sustained by technology that had been cutting edge when she was young and was now considered ancient. She lived in a hidden facility on a small moon that officially did not exist, surrounded by screens that showed her everything happening across human space. Her name was Elena Vasquez. She had been 19 years old when Ghost Mother first saved her life on Meridian 4. A frightened soldier crawling through alien jungle with nothing but a voice to guide her. That experience had changed her. She had spent the next several years trying to find the woman who had saved her, following rumors and legends and encrypted signals through the vast networks of human civilization. When she finally succeeded, she had found something she never expected. The original Ghost Mother was dying. She was a woman named Dr. Amara Song, a former military intelligence analyst who had suffered a devastating personal loss during the early years of the Vectari War. Her husband and 2 children had been killed on a colony world that military forces had failed to protect. In her grief, she had decided to ensure that no one else would die because help did not arrive in time. She had been brilliant, determined, and utterly ruthless in pursuing her goal. She had stolen technology, blackmailed officials, created entire fake identities to access the systems she needed. She had become Ghost Mother through sheer force of will, transforming herself into something more than human through cybernetic enhancements and neural interfaces that allowed her to monitor hundreds of data streams simultaneously. But the enhancements were killing her. The human brain was not designed for the kind of constant input she required, and her neural tissue was slowly deteriorating, despite every effort to preserve it. When Elena found her, she had perhaps 10 years left. I need someone to continue this work, Dr. Song had said. Someone who understands what it means to be saved, who knows how important it is to have someone watching when everything seems hopeless. I think you might be that person, Elena. I think you might be the next Ghost Mother. Elena had accepted. She had trained for 8 years, learning everything Dr. Song could teach her, undergoing her own enhancements, gradually taking over more and more of Ghost Mother's operations. When Dr. Song finally died, the transition was seamless. The voice that guided soldiers and protected civilians never changed, never faltered, never revealed that there was a new person behind it. Now Elena was dying too. She had lasted longer than Dr. Song, had developed better enhancement protocols and more sustainable monitoring systems. She had built a network of successors who handled different aspects of Ghost Mother's work, reducing the burden on any single person. But she was still dying, and she knew it was time to pass on the core responsibility to the next generation. Her chosen successor was a woman named Maria Torres, daughter of the commander who had escaped the observer attack on the mining station. Maria had grown up with stories about Ghost Mother, had dedicated her life to learning everything she could about the mysterious guardian, had eventually been recruited into the network of helpers that Elena had built over the decades. Maria was 42 years old, brilliant and compassionate, and driven by the same fire that had motivated Dr. Song and Elena herself. She had completed her training. She had proven herself in countless smaller interventions. She was ready to become the third Ghost Mother. But before she took over completely, Elena wanted to do one more thing. She wanted to finally reveal herself. The decision was controversial among her network. Ghost Mother's power came partly from her mystery, from the fact that she could be anyone, anywhere. Revealing even one person behind the legend might diminish that power, might make future interventions less effective. But Elena was tired of anonymity. She had spent most of her life as a ghost, and she wanted to be human again, even if only for a moment. She chose her moment carefully. The Alliance Council was meeting to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Vectari Peace Treaty, gathering representatives from every human world and allied species to celebrate humanity's survival and growth. Ghost Mother had been invited to attend symbolically, her voice broadcast to the assembled delegates as a tribute to everything she had done. Instead of a recorded message, Elena decided to appear in person. The security arrangements were complicated. She had made many enemies over the years, people and organizations that had suffered because of her interventions, Some of them would certainly try to kill her if given the opportunity. Her network spent months preparing, securing the venue, establishing evacuation routes, ensuring that she could reveal herself without being immediately assassinated. When the day came, Elena was carried into the council chamber on a medical platform, her body too frail to walk on its own. The delegates fell silent as she entered, confused by this unexpected change in the program. Then Maria activated the communication system, and Ghost Mother's familiar voice filled the room. "My name is Elena Vasquez. I was a soldier, a long time ago, on a planet called Meridian 4. A voice guided me through a jungle full of enemies, showed me where to go, told me I would survive. That voice saved my life. Later, I met the woman behind that voice, a brilliant woman named Dr. Amara Song, who had decided that no one should have to face darkness alone. When she died, I took her place. I became Ghost Mother. The reaction in the chamber was immediate and overwhelming. Delegates leaped to their feet, shouting questions, demanding proof, expressing shock and disbelief. But Elena continued speaking, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "I am dying now, as Dr. Song died before me. But Ghost Mother will not die with me. I have trained successors, built systems, created a network that will continue this work for generations. Ghost Mother is not one person. Ghost Mother is an idea, a commitment, a promise that humanity makes to itself, that we will watch over each other, that we will not abandon anyone to darkness, that we will always reach out a hand to those who need help." She paused, looking out at the assembled representatives of human civilization and their alien allies. These were the people she had protected for so long, the children she had watched grow into a species that spanned the stars. She felt a fierce love for them, a pride that transcended words. "I was afraid to reveal myself," she admitted. "I thought the mystery was important, that Ghost Mother needed to be a legend rather than a person. But I realized something. The mystery was never about me. It was about hope. It was about knowing that someone cares enough to watch, to listen, to help when help is needed. That hope does not require secrets. It requires truth. It requires people who are willing to stand up and say, 'I am here. I am watching. I will not let you face this alone.'" Elena smiled, the expression strange on a face that had spent decades hidden from the world. "I am Elena Vasquez. I was Ghost Mother, and I am so proud to have been your guardian." The applause started slowly, scattered clapping that grew into a thunderous ovation. Delegates from species that did not even have hands found ways to express their appreciation, their gratitude, their respect. Elena had expected hostility, suspicion, demands for accountability. Instead, she received love, freely and openly given by the civilization she had devoted her life to protecting. Admiral Sarah Keating was 94 years old, retired for decades but still sharp enough to understand what she was witnessing. She had hunted Ghost Mother once, had tried to expose the mysterious guardian who dared to operate outside official channels. Now she wheeled her own medical chair forward through the crowd, approaching Elena with tears streaming down her weathered face. "You magnificent fool," Keating said. "You beautiful, stubborn, impossible person. I spent years trying to catch you. I thought you were dangerous, that anyone with that much power and no accountability was a threat to civilization. But you were never dangerous to us. You were dangerous for us. You were our sword and our shield and our guardian angel, all in one." Elena took the Admiral's hand, feeling the thin bones and papery skin that mirrored her own. "You would have done the same, if you had been in my position. Anyone would have." "No," Keating said firmly. "Not anyone, not even most people. It takes something special to sacrifice yourself for others the way you have. It takes something rare and precious and irreplaceable. You gave us everything, Elena, everything. And we can never repay you." "You already have," Elena replied. "By surviving, by growing, by becoming the species I always believed you could be. That is payment enough. That is more than enough." The ceremony that followed was unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. Elena spoke for hours, answering questions about her operations, explaining how Ghost Mother had worked, introducing some of her successors who would continue the work. She told stories about interventions that had never been publicly known, rescues and breakthroughs and quiet moments of connection that had shaped history in ways most people never realized. She told them about Dr. Amara Song, the original ghost mother, whose grief and determination had started everything. She told them about the soldiers who had inspired her, the commanders who had trusted her, the ordinary people who had shown extraordinary courage when given the chance. She told them about the mistakes she had made, the people she had failed to save, the interventions that had gone wrong despite her best efforts. "I am not perfect," she said. "Ghost Mother was never perfect. We made wrong decisions sometimes. We missed things we should have caught. People died because we were not good enough, not fast enough, not smart enough. I carry those failures with me every day. But we kept trying. We kept watching. We kept believing that every life saved was worth any cost, any risk, any sacrifice." The speech lasted until Elena's voice gave out, until the medical systems keeping her alive began to falter under the strain. Maria Torres stepped forward then, placing a hand on Elena's shoulder, taking over with a voice that carried the same warmth and strength that humanity had known for half a century. "Elena Vasquez will rest now," Maria said. "She has earned it. But Ghost Mother's work continues. I am one of many who will carry this responsibility forward. We will watch over you, as Elena watched, as Dr. Song watched before her. We will be your guardians in the darkness, your voice of hope when hope seems lost. This is our promise. This is our sacred duty. This is what Ghost Mother means." Elena survived for 3 more months after the ceremony. She spent that time in a hospice facility on Earth, the homeworld she had never actually visited during her decades as Ghost Mother. She received visitors constantly, people who wanted to thank her, people who wanted to share their own stories of her interventions, people who simply wanted to see the face behind the legend. Captain Marcus Chen came, bringing his children and grandchildren to meet the woman who had watched over his family for 3 generations. Sergeant Major Helen Park came, the soldier who had activated the first observer disruption field, accompanied by scientists who had spent their careers developing that technology into better and more powerful forms. Hundreds of others came, soldiers and civilians and leaders and ordinary people, each with their own connection to the woman who had called herself Ghost Mother. Elena's final days were peaceful. She watched the stars through her window, tracked the progress of her successors through the monitoring systems that had been adapted for her failing eyes, smiled at reports of successful interventions and new alliances and crises averted. The universe was still dangerous, still full of threats that would require eternal vigilance. But humanity was ready. They had been prepared by decades of guidance, strengthened by connections that transcended individual worlds or species. On the night Elena died, Ghost Mother's voice was heard across human space. It was Maria now, speaking to the millions who would never know the difference, offering comfort and guidance to soldiers in distant war zones and colonists facing hostile environments and children afraid of the dark. "You are not alone," the voice said, as it had said countless times before. "Someone is watching. Someone cares. You will make it through this darkness. I believe in you." Elena heard those words in her final moments, heard the promise being kept even as she prepared to let go of the life she had devoted to keeping it. She smiled, the expression peaceful and content, and closed her eyes for the last time. The funeral was broadcast across every human world and beamed to every allied species. Billions watched as Elena Vasquez was laid to rest on Earth, in a cemetery that overlooked the ocean, beneath a stone that read simply, "She watched over us." But even as they mourned, humanity knew that Ghost Mother was not gone. The voice continued to speak from the darkness, guiding and protecting and encouraging. The network Elena had built grew stronger every year, expanding to include new guardians, new technologies, new ways of watching over those who needed protection. 50 years after Elena's death, Ghost Mother had become an institution rather than a legend. There were thousands of people now who participated in the network, professionals trained in crisis intervention and equipped with technology that the original guardians could never have imagined. The mystery that had once surrounded Ghost Mother had been replaced by transparency, by public awareness of how the network operated and who was involved. But the core mission never changed. Someone was always watching. Someone always cared. No one who called for help was ever truly alone. Maria Torres served as the primary Ghost Mother for 27 years before passing the responsibility to her own successor, a former diplomat named James Wright. He had been the pilot Ghost Mother saved in the asteroid field, had dedicated his life to repaying that debt through service to others. He understood, as all of them understood, that being Ghost Mother was not about power, or recognition, or glory. It was about love, simple and unconditional. Love for people you might never meet. Love that demanded nothing in return. The institution survived challenges that would have destroyed lesser organizations. Political factions tried to control it. Corporations tried to profit from it. Enemies tried to destroy it. But Ghost Mother endured because its purpose was pure. Because the people who served it believed in something larger than themselves. Because humanity had learned that some things were too precious to abandon. 100 years after Elena's death, the Alliance Council passed a resolution making Ghost Mother an official part of human civilization, protected by law and supported by public funding. The resolution was called the Vasquez Protocol, in honor of the woman who had given her life to create something that would outlast her. 200 years after Elena's death, Ghost Mother had become a model that other species adopted, a template for civilizations that wanted to create their own networks of guardians and protectors. The galaxy became a web of watchers, each civilization caring for its own people, while cooperating with others to face threats that no single species could handle alone. And through it all, the voice continued to speak. Different people, different technologies, different challenges, but always the same message. You are not alone. Someone is watching. You will survive this. I believe in you. On the 500th anniversary of the first recorded Ghost Mother intervention, a massive memorial was constructed on Nexar 7, the planet where Sergeant Marcus Cole had first heard that saving voice. The memorial included statues of Dr. Amara Song and Elena Vasquez, the two women who had created and sustained the legend. But the central piece was a simple plaque with words that every human child learned to recite. In darkness, we watch. In silence, we listen. In despair, we hope. We are Ghost Mother. We are all of us. We are humanity. The ceremony dedicating the memorial was attended by representatives from every species in the galaxy that had adopted Ghost Mother's model. They came to honor not just two women, but an idea that had spread across the stars and changed the nature of civilization itself. They came to celebrate the belief that no one should face darkness alone, that watching over each other was the highest purpose any intelligent being could pursue. And somewhere in the crowd, unnoticed by anyone, stood a young woman who had just been recruited into the Ghost Mother network. She was nervous, uncertain, wondering if she was truly ready for the responsibility she was about to accept. But then she heard the voice in her earpiece, the warm and steady voice that had guided billions of people through their darkest moments. "Welcome to the family," Ghost Mother said. "You are going to do wonderful things. I believe in you." The young woman smiled. She stood a little straighter. She looked up at the statues of Song and Vasquez, these ordinary women who had chosen to become something extraordinary. And she made a silent promise to continue their legacy. She would watch. She would listen. She would help. And one day, when her time came, she would pass the torch to another, ensuring that the light of Ghost Mother continued to shine across the universe forever. That was the true legacy of the woman who remained unknown. Not fame or recognition or glory, but a chain of compassion stretching across generations, a commitment to care that would never die. Elena Vasquez had wanted to matter, had wanted her life to mean something beyond her own brief existence. She had succeeded beyond her wildest dreams. Ghost Mother lived on. Ghost Mother would always live on. And somewhere in the darkness, on 1,000 worlds across 100 species, someone was always watching, always listening, always ready to speak the words that could save a life. You are not alone. I am here. I believe in you. The story had no ending, because some stories were never meant to end. They were meant to grow, to spread, to become part of the fabric of existence itself. Ghost Mother was such a story, born from grief and determination, nurtured by sacrifice and love, destined to echo through eternity as a reminder of what intelligent beings could achieve when they chose compassion over indifference. Elena would have been proud. Dr. Song would have been proud. And the billions of people who had lived because of Ghost Mother, who would live because of Ghost Mother, who would carry the legacy forward into futures that no one could imagine. They would remember, and they would be grateful, and they would pass the story on to their children, and their children's children, forever. Because that was what Ghost Mother was, in the end. Not a person, not an organization, not even an idea. Ghost Mother was love, made manifest across the stars. And love, true love, never dies.